rats in town can't figure where they lay. He took all my planning and just threw it all away. He have to wait to see what happens every day. Hey, but I'm not one of those guys. Hello and welcome into this inaugural viewing of Tony Talks Trash about vinyl and other subjects. I think I owe you guys an explanation, or at least tell you about myself. I'm a 63-year-old dude here living in town. I've been a professional, had an office here in town, but I have a long musical history. I played in bands, and I've released myself personally 6 records, but I've been a long collector since I've been a child. I went through the whole thing of having a boatload of records and selling them and thinking CDs were the greatest thing and scrambling back. I always held on to a core group of records with some of my favorite people, but my collection's fairly extensive, compared to most people. And, I like a wide variety of music. I'm a big fan of all these podcasts that are on here. I'm not going to name any particular ones, but, I'm a big fan of anything really related to vinyl and the vinyl community. Almost everybody on here are cool people. The ones that aren't cool seem to bounce themselves out of it pretty quickly. But, I think just on here, if it's kept light and you realize that these are just my opinions, and when you get to be a 63-year-old man, you kind of creep towards those old men in the balcony of the Muppets thing. Not to be too curmudgeonly about modern music, there are some modern music things that I like, but it's fair to say that the bulk of my music interest lies in recorded music, probably from the 40s, probably from the 50s forward. I went through the whole rock thing a lot, and I would say that the majority of the music that I try to seek out now are things that I haven't heard before. I have kind of a voracious appetite about things like that. I've always been a completist as far as collecting and things go. And so maybe some of the focus of this channel, as opposed to the one I have with Bart and Tony Talking Vinyl, BTTV, in addition to that one, this is one where I can dial down a little more on core subjects and get into some more minutia about things that may be of general interest to me and maybe a little bit on the fringe. Plan to do some ranking videos. Probably not going to get into complete things like you get into some of the better ones on the internet. Sea of Tranquility and Taste Like Music are a couple that come to mind. But there are a lot of great bloggers out there and a lot of people who have video blogs and I follow regularly and I've subscribed to. And so we would hope that you guys would eventually get to the point where you'd give us a try out here. We're out here in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia. Grew up in a small town called Kaiser. I now live in New Creek, and which is a little bit down the road. But I still maintain my business in the city of Kaiser, as does Bart down the road, as does some of the other people you're going to see. You're probably going to see my friend Jay on here a lot. Jay and I, Jennings Stickley, Hack, whatever you want to call him, he and I have been friends since school. We kind of, I've been kind of more person busy with my family and busy with my work and such. And so it's been nice to reconnect with him over the last few years. He's working with me lyrically on this new project that we're doing about our town here in Kaiser. So maybe hopefully one of these podcasts we can talk a little bit about that and what's going into all that. He's really sparked me lyrically. I think we've done some of the best lyrics that we've done. And it's supposedly going to be a concept to work around the time when we grew up and kind of our experience growing up here, and which is really the only thing we know. But and that's my point of music. That music's really affected me deeply ever since I've been young. I'm one of these guys that moved to tears quite often. I can't tell you how many things, I've cried on Lou Reed Berlin. I've cried on the Dirty Jobs on Quadrophenia. I cry when anything's beautiful. It's just beautiful art. I want to hear what somebody has to say. I want to hear communication. It's not important. Technique is important to a certain extent, But I'm a fan of a lot of the punk music and a lot of the primal music we have. And even some of the outsider music that's really simple, things like Wesley Willis. I love Wesley Willis. I'll show you some of the things later on this channel. Tell you a little bit about my encounters with him and show you a couple things that I bought from him. I have a picture of me and Wes, and I have a drawing that's kind of faded that he did with markers. But no, it's a wide variety, man. I love jazz. I'm a big Miles and Coltrane and Mingus fan. I'm opinionated as far as some of these things go, and it's kind of a, let this be kind of a place where people can air out what they want to. And if you want to take some pot shots at me, go ahead. I'm a big boy. I can handle. I'm 63. I know who I am, and I know my shortcomings, and I'm not afraid. Nobody's going to hurt me by saying anything like I'm a hillbilly, because I know I am. That's where I live. I live in West Virginia. I understand that. That's how somebody might see it, and it's funny, in my dealings in business, I use that to my advantage all the time. So I invite people to go ahead and underestimate us and underestimate things. You might be surprised. Our little town here had an inordinate amount of musicians. I found out when I moved to Washington, D.C., and managed record stores after I was in college, and was in bands and played some of the good venues. Was very lucky. When I think back about the other local bands and where we were, we always pretty much had the best. So I can't have any complaints. When I was down there, I played at 930 Club and played at the Bayou, and had some good friends all across the board. I don't want to go around name dropping. It's you're probably going to hear enough of it in here, but that's not really the purpose of this. The purpose of this is really to show the love of music and to show the importance to music to me. It's a spiritual thing. It always has been. And, I'm married. My 2 kids are in college now, and where things are racing quickly. But, I married the right person. She's a fantastic artist herself. You've seen her artwork. It's actually been on our records before. The most famous one probably is the WildFlow record. You think you can see it over my shoulder here? Maybe. Let me see if you can see it there. But it's the big sunshine. We'll show it at some point, and we'll be talking about that stuff. But to me, art's been an important part of my life. My other part of my life, I like to keep balanced, but I do spend a lot of time listening to music. I don't have as much time to listen to newer artists, so if anybody has any suggestions or anything that I'm missing here, go. But I want to cover everything from general trends in the industry, which I've already done a couple of videos on here. You'll be seeing here. You might consider those what other people would say were rants. I guess that's what they would say at Sea of Tranquility. They would call those things a rant, and it just depends on the mood of those guys that taste like music, and sometimes their stuff can get like that too. I love all those guys. But I'm hoping, it can be something we can slide our little toe in here too, and have an opinion about these things and talk about things of special interest, especially to my hometown. I think you're going to find there's a lot of interesting things about our town here in West Virginia, at least as far as it goes in music. We were a lot more hip in this little town than probably any radius, probably a 50-mile radius any way around here. We had people regularly making trips to the city to get records and to find out what was happening back in the pre-internet days. Now, back in the internet days, you didn't know. I mean, I remember collecting things like Frank Zappa records, and we didn't know what the discography was. We'd drive down and say, "Oh, here's Weasels with My Flesh. I've never heard this. This is cool. Let's get this. Here's Burnt Weenie Sandwich or Uncle Meat." We didn't know that until we'd find it in the store, because there's no place. A lot of people now, it's hard to. And it's of little value to them. And here comes the old guy talking again about how it was hard, but it really was difficult to find out things. And so you put more effort, I think, into seeking it out. It's all at your fingertips now. We had to drive. I remember my friend and I, John, we were supposed to be playing basketball in our town, and Baltimore, Towson was 2.5, 3 hours away. We just climbed in his car like 9 o'clock in the morning and went down and came back a little bit later with all the new information, and taped it, and people pass it around. We collected things like bootleg records. Wow, we found new things like those, and it was a real experience. In the concerts, and one thing at a time. We're uniquely situated here. We're about halfway between Pittsburgh and Washington D.C., and we're not. We're a couple hours from everything, but we're close enough that we're really not far from the eastern seaboard. A lot of people like to say that Kaiser, is kind of in the middle or kind of towards the Midwest, or some people that think that. But after going to school out in Louisville, Kentucky, we're not the Midwest at all here. We're definitely more on an eastern, albeit rural, albeit a little slower, but we are on the eastern side of things when information goes. I think we're really more hooked into the Baltimore-Washington market than we are the Pittsburgh market. Although, sports teams they're split here. I grew up a Pirates fan and a Pittsburgh fan, and then I lived in D.C., became a Redskins fan, and Then after the Redskins went out, came back home, back to the Steelers. And so that's kind of where I lie. Big WVU fans here too, man. WVU is our, in Kaiser, it's our big thing. We just hired a new basketball coach. I know this isn't a sports channel, but we're excited about that here. So one of the big things we got coming up here soon that I think I'd let everybody know about is there's a concert in May. I think it's May 15th. I think is the date. It's on a Wednesday, I believe. Todd Rundgren is playing in Morgantown. We'd like to really make a good showing there. Todd was a special. I'm going to do a special here later with my friend Jay, who grew up with me, and we'll talk a little bit about the special place that Todd holds here in Kaiser lore, and where we are, and what it meant to us. We're kind of a little bit of outliers in that, because honestly, when you look back at that time period, I mean, if you would have thought Kaiser was reflective of the world, then Todd would have been, kind of like a modern day Beatles, because everybody had his records. Everybody, they played his songs on the radio. This was a different type of place. And we'll talk about that later. But anyway, want to let you know a little bit about me. There's a lot more there. I was a manager of a Penguin Feather and the Wiz in the Washington, D.C. area. I knew all the people in that area. And I have actually an episode of the BTTV with Bart, where we talk about that. Bart similarly worked in Washington, D.C. at Joe's Record Paradise, and also worked at Drum Workshop, or the Drum Center there, I think it was called. And, I had some stories about that. So keep an eye peeled out for that. But anyway, we appreciate it. We hope you subscribe to our podcast. We invite you to comment. We invite you to make suggestions. We invite you to hopefully like this and follow and all the other good things to help us out and to let us have a little voice here in the vinyl community. We look forward to seeing you soon, and thanks a lot for tuning in.